At 76, Steve Perry finally reveals why he stopped singing. Steve Perry, born January 22, 1949, in Hanford, California, is best known as the legendary lead vocalist of the rock band Journey. Rising to fame in the late 1970s and 1980s, his soaring tenor voice and emotional delivery powered timeless hits like Don't Stop Believin', Open Arms, and Faithfully, dubbed The Voice. Perry's unique blend of power and vulnerability made him one of rock's most iconic frontmen. After leaving Journey in the 1990s, he pursued solo projects, releasing heartfelt albums that further cemented his status as a rock legend and emotional storyteller. The musical roots of Steve Perry. Steve Perry's journey into music was born out of hardship and inspiration. At just 7 years old, his parents divorced, leaving him in the care of his mother, Mary, who became the guiding light of his life. Mary's unwavering support fueled his passion, and at age 12 she gifted him a necklace with a musical note charm, an emblem Perry would cherish forever. The true spark ignited when he first heard Sam Cooke's soulful voice on the radio. That moment shaped his destiny, awakening in him an unshakable determination to become a singer and share his own emotions through music. The struggles before the spotlight. Before Steve Perry became the legendary voice of Journey, his life was marked by years of hardship, relentless effort, and heartbreak. Like many aspiring musicians, Perry endured a long road of uncertainty, chasing a dream that often felt out of reach. To support himself, he took on countless jobs, singing jingles for commercials, working as a sound engineer, and even playing drums whenever opportunities arose. Each role, though small, kept him tethered to music, fueling his determination to keep going despite the constant setbacks. During this time, Perry joined several small local bands, learning the craft of live performance and refining his vocal style. Yet nothing seemed to last. The turning point came when he formed Alien Project, a group where, for the first time, he truly stepped forward as the lead singer. The band began to build momentum, and for Perry, it felt like the start of something real, a chance to finally carve out his path in the rock world. But fate struck cruelly. His closest friend and bassist of Alien Project, Richard Michaels, died tragically in a car accident. The band collapsed almost overnight, leaving Perry devastated and questioning everything he had fought for. The dream that had seemed so close suddenly vanished into grief and silence, crushed by loss and exhaustion. Perry returned home and took a job at his stepfather's turkey ranch. For months, he buried himself in ordinary work, convincing himself that maybe his shot at music was over. The boy who once carried a necklace with a musical note charm now stood at the edge of surrender. And yet, deep down, the fire was not extinguished. It merely waited for the right moment to reignite. The turning point, joining Journey. After years of struggle, heartbreak, and near surrender, Steve Perry's life changed forever with one stroke of fate. His demo tape, If You Need Me, Call Me, somehow made its way into the hands of Journey's manager, Herbie Herbert. At the time, Journey was a band in crisis despite their instrumental talent. Their albums lacked commercial success, and their record label was on the verge of dropping them. Herbert believed Perry's unique voice could be the missing piece that would save the band. Perry was invited to audition in late 1977. The moment he opened his mouth, Journey's sound transformed. His soaring tenor, filled with both power and vulnerability, was unlike anything the band, or rock music at large, had ever heard. Journey welcomed him as their new frontman, and history was set in motion. Their first album together, Infinity, 1978, marked the birth of a new era. With hits like Lights and Wheel in the Sky, Journey gained mainstream recognition, powered by Perry's emotional delivery and undeniable charisma. The band that once risked being forgotten suddenly found themselves at the center of rock's rising wave. The success continued with Evolution, 1979, and Departure, 1980, further refining their blend of arena rock and heartfelt ballads. Perry's voice became the band's soul, bringing intensity and tenderness in equal measure. Fans connected not just with the music, but with the raw humanity in his vocals. Then came Escape, 1981, the album that cemented Journey's legacy, featuring timeless anthems such as Don't Stop Believin', Open Arms, and Who's Crying Now. The record became a global phenomenon. Perry's voice carried the dreams, heartbreaks, and resilience of an entire generation. The songs transcended charts and decades, becoming cultural touchstones that still resonate today. By the early 1980s, Steve Perry was no longer just a singer, he was an icon. With Journey, he had gone from near obscurity to the pinnacle of rock stardom. For millions around the world, Perry's story was no longer just about survival, it was about transformation. Proof that even after devastating loss, destiny could still offer a second chance. Steve Perry, Triumph and Fracture. After leading Journey to global superstardom with Escape and Frontiers, Steve Perry was at the very peak of his career. Yet even at the summit, the call for independence echoed within him. In 1984, Perry released his first solo album, Street Talk, which turned out to be a massive success. Songs like Oh Sherry and Foolish Heart topped the charts and proved that Perry's golden voice could soar even outside Journey. For the first time, he was no longer just the face of a band, he was a star in his own right. However, the path forward was more complicated than the triumphs suggested. Journey regrouped to record Raised on Radio in 1986, with Perry not only as the lead singer, but also heavily involved in shaping the album's sound. The record was a commercial success, further solidifying Perry's dominance in the rock world. But behind the spotlight, his personal life was unraveling. His mother, Mary, the woman who had been his anchor and inspiration since childhood, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. As the band embarked on a tour to promote Raised on Radio, Perry carried the crushing weight of his mother's decline every night on stage. While the crowd roared, a storm brewed inside him. The exhaustion was not just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and deeply human. By early 1987, Perry reached a breaking point, just 15 shows short of completing the tour. He walked away. For fans, it was shocking. For Journey, it marked the end of an era. Perry's decision closed the first great chapter of the band's history, leaving behind a legacy of unforgettable songs, but also a trail of unanswered questions. The man whose voice had lifted millions was now silenced by grief and burnout, proving that even legends carry fragility. The tragedy of losing his mother, for Steve Perry, music had always been intertwined with his mother, Mary. From the moment she gave him the tiny necklace shaped like a musical note at age 12, she had been his anchor, his guide, and his fiercest supporter. Mary was the one who encouraged him to keep going through years of struggle, who reminded him that his voice was a gift, and who stood by him when the world seemed unwilling to listen. But on December 4th, 1985, tragedy struck. Mary passed away after a long battle with a neurological illness. Her death shattered Perry in a way that success and fame could never mend. At the very moment when he was conquering the rock world, touring stadiums, topping charts, and living the dream millions longed for, he lost the person who had given him that dream in the first place. To the public. Perry was still the soaring voice of Journey, but inside, he was hollowed out, carrying a grief that silenced the joy in his singing. Perry himself admitted in later interviews that losing his mother was the greatest wound of his life. Though he continued performing and recording, the fire that had once burned so brightly inside him dimmed. Each note he sang carried not just melody, but mourning. He would look out at the sea of fans, hear their cheers, and yet feel a profound emptiness because Mary was no longer there to share it. This grief slowly drove a wedge between Perry and the stage. Music, once his salvation, became a reminder of loss. The man who had sung with such passion and urgency now found himself unable to summon the same energy. By the late 1980s, it became clear Steve Perry was drifting away, not because his talent had diminished, but because his heart could no longer bear the weight of the spotlight without his mother by his side. Steve Perry's vanished years of love, after the loss of his mother and the gradual dimming of his fire for performance, Steve Perry retreated into silence. For nearly 2 decades, he became almost a ghost in the music world, rarely seen in public, never releasing new material, and living a quiet, private life far from the spotlight. Fans speculated endlessly about his absence, but Perry himself admitted that grief and exhaustion had stolen his voice long before he physically left the stage. Music, once his salvation, had turned into a haunting reminder of everything he had lost. Then, in 2011, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. Through a documentary about cancer, Perry met Kelly Nash, a psychologist battling stage 4 breast cancer. Despite the tragic circumstances, they were drawn to each other instantly. Their bond grew quickly, not out of desperation, but out of a profound recognition of love's fragility. For the first time in years, Perry felt alive again. Kelly reminded him what it meant to truly connect, to laugh, to feel, and to embrace the present moment without fear of loss. Their relationship was tender and courageous. Both knew time was against them, yet that knowledge only deepened their intimacy. They lived fully in each moment, creating memories Perry would later describe as some of the most precious of his life. But in 2012, Kelly passed away, leaving Perry devastated once more. Unlike the silence he had chosen after his mother's death, this time Kelly had left him with a promise to keep before she died. Kelly asked Perry to promise her one thing: don't disappear again. Go back to the music, share your voice. Those words became both a burden and a beacon. Perry carried them with him through the grief, and slowly they became the spark that reignited his journey. He realized that honoring Kelly meant not retreating into shadows, but stepping back into the world, giving life to the gift she had believed in so deeply. Kelly Nash's love, brief yet eternal, became the turning point that led Steve Perry back to music. Her death marked another wound, but her wish for him planted the seed of his rebirth. Steve Perry's 2-decade return, after years of silence and grief. Steve Perry's return to music felt nothing short of miraculous. In 2014, fans around the world were stunned when Perry walked onto the stage at an Eels concert in St. Paul, Minnesota. For the first time in almost 2 decades, he performed Journey classics like Open Arms and Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin'. The audience erupted, many in tears, as the unmistakable voice of Journey once again soared into the night. That moment proved Perry still carried the magic that had defined an era. 4 years later, in 2018, Perry released Traces, his first solo album in nearly 25 years. The record deeply personal and reflective, entered the Billboard 200 at number 6, a triumphant comeback. Songs like No Erasing and We're Still Here spoke of loss, love, and resilience, echoing the pain of his past while embracing renewal. Unlike his earlier work, Traces wasn't about chasing stardom. It was about honesty and healing. In 2021, Perry surprised fans again with The Season, a Christmas album infused with gentle jazz arrangements. His tender renditions of holiday classics revealed a softer, more intimate side, as though he were singing directly to listeners gathered in their own homes. Critics praised the warmth and vulnerability in his interpretations, proving Perry's artistry had only deepened with time. By 2023, his journey came full circle when he teamed up with Dolly Parton for a powerful duet of Open Arms. Two legends of American music joining voices created a moment of pure magic, celebrated across generations. The collaboration highlighted Perry's enduring influence and his willingness to share the stage with kindred spirits. And in 2024, Perry announced Season 3, another step forward in his renewed artistic path. This time, his music was created not under the shadow of industry pressure, but in the light of freedom. Free from the demands of fame, Perry embraced his role not as a superstar, but as a storyteller, honoring his past while living fully in the present. Steve Perry's return was not about reclaiming a throne, but about reclaiming himself. He reemerged not as the rock idol of the 1980s, but as a man who had faced loss, silence, and love, and finally chosen to share his voice again, with peace, humility, and gratitude. A voice that never fades. Steve Perry's legacy is not simply that of a rock star, but of a voice that continues to transcend generations. From a poor boy in Hanford, California, who once carried the weight of family struggles and personal loss, Perry rose to become one of the most recognizable voices in rock history. His time with Journey in the late 1970s and 1980s defined an era, bringing timeless hits like Don't Stop Believin', Open Arms, and Faithfully, songs that remain cultural touchstones, still played at stadiums, weddings, and films decades later. But beyond commercial success, Perry's voice became the embodiment of emotion itself. His soaring tenor carried not only melodies, but also the human spirit, filled with love, heartbreak, longing, and resilience. His music has often been described as soul-meeting rock, a rare blend that touched millions. Even after his long absence, when Perry returned, his artistry felt enriched by the weight of life experiences, making every note even more poignant. Perry's journey was never just about fame. It was about survival, loss, and the courage to return. He lost his mother, his anchor, at the height of success. He vanished for years, carrying grief that nearly silenced him forever. Yet, he reemerged, honoring a promise to love and to sing again. His albums Traces and The Season prove that artistry can evolve with age, bringing wisdom, honesty, and vulnerability. The legacy Steve Perry leaves is this: music never dies. It waits patiently in the silence, ready to return when the heart finds its voice again. Through every struggle and every comeback, Perry remains proof that true artistry is eternal. Lessons from the journey of Steve Perry. From Steve Perry's story, one profound lesson emerges. Resilience is not about never falling, but about finding the courage to rise again. Perry's life was marked by extraordinary highs, global fame with Journey, timeless hits that became cultural anthems, and devastating lows. From the death of his beloved mother to years of silence and personal grief. Yet, through every setback, He eventually chose not to let pain define his destiny. Instead, he transformed loss into wisdom, turning his voice into a vessel of authenticity. His return to music after nearly 2 decades was not about reclaiming fame, but about honoring life, love, and the promise to keep singing. The lesson is universal. We are not measured by how long we shine, but by how we carry ourselves in darkness. Perry teaches us that stepping away is not weakness, and returning is not about grandeur. It is about staying true to one's essence. His journey reminds us to embrace vulnerability, to live with honesty, and to let passion guide us even when the world doubts us. Most importantly, Perry's story proves that the human spirit, much like music, never truly dies. It waits for the right moment to rise again. If Steve Perry's story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to follow more untold journeys.